Thank you, Professor Wu. Today we have the honor to have His Excellency Murata Salim, the Ambassador to China, who be with us. So let's welcome Ambassador Ashley to present his remarks. Ambassador, please.
你好，早上好。Professor Wu, Professor Tu Wei Min, distinguished academics and students, members of the Turkish Women's Cultural Association, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be present at this gathering with you to promote dialogue across civilizations. Our intent here is to foster academic research in humanities. And I am very much humbled by my fellow panelists. They are all very well-known individuals in their fields. And as an ambassador, of course, I am a little bit away from this area, but they have given me this golden opportunity to address such a distinguished gathering, and I'll try to be as relevant as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, establishing Kenan Rifai Distinguished Professorship of Islamic Studies at the Beijing University is an outstanding step for cross-cultural understanding. Therefore, let me also thank Professor Zhou Qifeng, President of Beijing University, who is not here with us, but I'm sure the message will be delivered. Also Professor Wu and Professor Tu for their efforts and warm welcome in the foundation of this fellowship program, of the academic exchange. And again, I would like to refer to the distinguished members of the Turkish Women's Cultural Association for their support and presence here in Beijing. Today, for those who may know, it's the third day of Eid al-Adha, and so it makes it even more propitious and auspicious to have such a gathering where we would be able to exchange ideas. It is crystal clear that the present social and economic crisis is fueling increased tensions among communities, amplifying the sense of insecurity and feeding feelings of resentment, hostility against immigrants, minorities, and creating the otherness to different cultures. The concept of all of these were amplified by the terrorist dastardly attacks of September 11, 2001. This has demonized the image of Islam and Muslims on the eyes of Westerners. And there is no clear-cut and comprehensive definition of terrorism in international criminal law, even today, after all those that we have witnessed and that we continue to witness. And terrorism is a real-life threat. It's such a diverse concept and complicated in all its elements that it makes it very difficult to make broad generalizations. We understand the complications, but we should never really let these terrorists dictate how we have to think and how we have to act towards each other. That is why terrorism doesn't have a religion, doesn't have ethnicity, nor does it have any race. We could see terrorism get into any shape, any time that it suits it. Therefore, we have to be incredibly careful about this concept. The critical aspect is to promote culture of peace. And culture of peace and its promotion starts here, in the school environment, in the academic environment. By this occasion, of course, I would like to recall two crucial dictums of Professor Kenan Rifai, a prominent Turkish intellectual, which are very relevant even today. One is to serve any person, no matter what religious background he or she comes from, it means to serve Allah. And the other is the purification, along with the minimalist approach in which all materialistic needs are restricted and having the pure pleasure of living with the minimum. Through this asceticism, which in Arabic referred to as riyazet, Professor Rifai became a spiritual monument in his age. From my point of view, Professor Rifai's asceticism indeed today offers a spiritual method of coping with the negative impacts of the volatile economic crisis on civilizations and human nature. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that the combination of equal cultural circumstances, which excludes hierarchy of cultures, and promoting dialogue along with equal opportunities are essential, as well as developing the global vision based on the similarities rather than differences amongst different societies. Appropriate action requires common and joint efforts at all levels, locally, nationally, regionally, internationally, to disperse the dark cloud of otherness and the impact of xenophobia. At this stage, I would like to take this opportunity to mention the process of the Alliance of Civilizations. It's an initiative which was introduced by our Prime Minister, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and by the Spanish Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Zapatero, back in 2005. This co-initiative, under the auspices of the United Nations, is a remedy for the misinterpretation of Islam in the West and the otherness. Turkey has given quite remarkable emphasis on this initiative. For this initiative, we have around 130 members at the moment. 100 of them are the members of the United Nations. The others are international organizations, and the necessity of, in fact, understanding what civil society can bring to public policies and what public policies can bring to advance civil society, diagnosis and the feeling that it detects at the various levels, namely at the local level. In this process, everything actually starts at the local level. We cannot build anything which is from top. I think it is critical to enjoy the support of the people at the local level. In this regard, let me stress that the main mission of the Alliance is to encourage its members, partners, stakeholders to develop a long-term strategy to deal with the challenges arising from cultural diversity. And here, I am using the word diversity as a richness, because this word really encompasses a lot of elements and a lot of positive elements that we can really dwell on, that we can build on. Although it has a global scope, it is urgent that we build bridges and promote dialogue. And also dialogue really goes through understanding and mutual respect. Because if you do not have a certain respect for the person that's before you, then you would not be able to really engage in a meaningful dialogue with that individual. And with this understanding, this is a top priority for action, because all findings unanimously show that an increasing polarization in the way Christians and Muslims view each other ought to be dispersed. It is critical that we imbue new generations with mutual understanding and this respect that I just mentioned. The Alliance has been acting as a catalyst, as a facilitator, a convener, a matchmaker, and a broker with a view to promoting tolerance, intercultural understanding, and mutual respect between cultures and religions. Ladies and gentlemen, the North and the South, East and the West, Asia and Europe, West and Persia, West and India, China and the West, Mediterranean and the North, these are the concepts that we have been hearing very frequently. And unfortunately, intentionally or unintentionally, they point to certain fault lines. They could be political, they could be economic, they could be cultural fault lines. But nonetheless, we do not want these concepts to be used as some kind of a hidden reference of a fault line. And we believe that China, as a country which is very rich with various cultures and very rich with various religions, is an important bed where we could really flourish new ideas. When I came to this country almost 2 years and 7 months ago, I was surprised to see that China was one of the first countries that had come into contact with Islam. And today, if you go to Xi'an, you will see the great mosque of Xi'an still intact, still operational, still receiving believers since 766 AD. This is an incredible performance. When we look at the history that China has been through, there has been turbulent times, there has been prosperous times, there has been wars, there has been peaces, but nonetheless, that mosque has remained in its place since 766 AD without a scratch. So this tells a lot about this society and this society's approach towards religions. And I'm not talking about only the Chinese approach towards Islam, but also Chinese approach towards other religions, Buddhism and Christianity. So I think there is a lot to be learned from this society, and I really believe that we are very fortunate to be here. And in terms of cultural makeup of the society, there are incredible diversities, and these diversities are being preserved with specific intention, and that intention is harmony. And this country is very sensitive about internal harmony. And I believe it is really setting an important example. All of us here, and also those who are outside this room, and hopefully they would read the minutes of this meeting as an important source of inspiration. When I look at my own country, Turkey, I would like to say that the Turkish people have also integrated different cultures and different religions in their society. And when we look back at the performance of the Ottoman Empire, I think it really shines as an important example as well. And those who have been to Istanbul would be surprised to see that in a very small neighborhood, you would have a synagogue, a mosque, and a church side by side, which coexisted for centuries and still continue to do so. So all these are great examples, important examples, and necessary examples for our more complex modern times. And I'm sure with the ideas that you're going to exchange, we will have a much brighter future. Ladies and gentlemen, no speech is complete without the dictum from Mevlana. And our very famous, very well-known Turkish philosopher, Mevlana Celaleddin Rumi, has said, "Intolerance, let it be like seed." I think that's where the crux of the matter. We have to be tolerant, we have to be understanding, and we have to be respectful. Thank you very much. Shishia.